Ezra mentioned that there are certain things that happen offline. None of these are free, right? So the idea is that tomorrow, even if you're doing it with a co-working space or a cafe, they have given it to you in a barter. They've given you the food and F&B, the space, maybe the sound system, but actually that has converted into a monetary partnership because you are not paying for certain aspects that are there. For a brand community, they could be partnering with another community tomorrow. For example, there is a D2C community is partnering with a founders community and saying, hey, we will have our products over there, right? But the idea is that actually somewhere translates into reducing the marketing costs and the customer acquisition costs of that brand, because they are reaching out to X number of people that otherwise they would have to do through events, through advertising, through other aspects of marketing and sales. So I always believe, and that's where I come on, the person of forging these partnerships and relationships between two parties, is that what perceived value are you also attaching to things that you're getting through a partnership that you're building? Because actually every single thing, from even spending half an hour in conversation of a potential partnership to any of the other things, all of them actually have a cost. It's just that some of them go in terms of money and some of them have a perceived value, which one must always be aware of.
True.
Another thing is, when we look at again paid and barter, is sorry, is my network on point? Can you all
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
me
yeah.
fine?
It's all good.
Perfect. So another thing when we look at the entire thing of paid and barter is understanding the value that can be a give and gain for both,
Hmm.
right? And I'm just going to quickly dive into when do you do a monetary versus when do you do a barter. Always do a barter first, right? Because the idea is that set lesser expectations, do a pilot, understand some of these things, then go into a monetary aspect, or ensure that if it is a pure monetary one, then you very, very clearly have defined what the outcomes are, and ensure that there is 100% transparency and communication and written communication on some of these aspects, so that all three parties are privy to it.
Such a valid one, which sort of, gets me starting to think about, a lot of times I have seen partnerships happen, the relationships are great, the event or whatever this whole understanding is happens, and then there's a lot of bad blood around deliverables, a lot of mismatch of expectations, which is quite surprising because ideally should not all of this be documented, and the expectation setting that takes place. So Ishita, while you've been setting up these collabs and partnerships, right, and to your point, how does one really set that expectation, in terms of when you're negotiating with them? How do you make sure deliverables are being taken care of? What's the risk that's coming with a partnership? How do you prevent it,
Sure. So one thing that I always do is written communication, right? I, for myself and for the team, call it the savior as task, where once things have been communicated, I always make sure that they're communicated in written form. Every partnership email that I send out, while it might have a MOU, a memorandum of understanding, or a non disclosure, or a service agreement, depending on what document you use and in what form, even the most informal way of just putting it on a WhatsApp message or an email saying that, hey, this is what we had discussed, this is what the partnership means. First of all, even talking about what the collaboration or partnership means, right? That the second is, this is what I will be providing, this is what I am expecting from you. Taking an example that very often There are a lot of, say, corporate events or other events that are happening, and communities have been called on board as ecosystem or outreach partners. Now, very, very clearly, you need to understand that when I move on this side and say, okay, Ishita is doing an event, I've done that tens of times in the last so many years. I very clearly say, my expectation is that you share it on XYZ platform. In my conversation with the community, I also understand which platforms they are the strongest on, and if that is relevant to me. If you're very strong on Telegram, but my audience is actually going to be a lot more on LinkedIn, then there is a disconnect, right? So you mentioned that I would look at you sharing it on these platforms. These are the number of posts I'm looking at. I would also want you to share the link maybe amongst your community. We will be able to, and then you get in return is the fact that your logo will be in XYZ places. So it's going to be on the website, it is going to be on these collaterals. This is the title under which it's also going to be there, right? Just ensuring that if someone comes, sometimes people don't want to be a community partner. Maybe they want to be a communication partner. Maybe they want to be a networking partner. Maybe they want to be an engagement partner. These are the tiny things you need to be aware of from a positioning. Put that down. If it is an event and you're giving them access or passes, how many are you giving them? Or are you giving them a discount? All of this is put down clearly, and you request them in writing to acknowledge that. And how I normally also use this as a way to acknowledge is saying, hey, this is what we discussed, in agreement to the same, requesting you to share your logo and links of social media, which is like that tiny tick at the end of every terms and conditions document that we look at, saying that if you have shared it with me, that means you have agreed to these points. And on the other end, I also want to make sure that when we talk about communities, they don't say yes to every partnership that's there, right? You know very clearly that what is in it for you, and you say, okay, I want this is. So you also somewhere put up your price, if I may say, when you know that you are giving access of your community to an event or to certain things. You also very clearly have your asks, and in both these places, why I feel this is important is not only because of the relationship that you all are sharing and to not have bad blood later, but also a point that I feel is very important and sometimes missed is that today it is not a Ritu doing this for herself or Ishita or, Aswati or anybody else, right? It is actually the community or the brand we represent. And we are answerable to the community members or the brand. So it's always important to not look at it from an individual, but from a holistic level of, the organization.
Yeah, I think that's so important, right, Ishita? Because until and unless you're able to represent the true people, and you're able to go back and answer to them that why I did this partnership and this was a win for you, which makes me want to ask you one question, and I'm gonna sort of, I had planned it for later, but let me just pull it out right now. Uh, Tell me about a partnership or a collaboration which didn't go well. What was, without naming brands, of course, or events or stakeholders, what went wrong and how did you sort of try to solve for it eventually? Let's look at the underbelly of partnerships and collaborations.
Interesting, Ritu. Fortunately, I would say I need to dig deeper into the partnerships that I've done in the past because that's what I feel like things have gone well most of the time. It is a good problem to have for a question like that. But I will tell you an instance, right? BFSI company, mainly in the banking and finance space, that very closely worked with a couple of years ago. The partnership that we did with them was, of course, they were launching something new. They wanted access to our community of founders. The idea was that, okay, we will do events and we will give you access to X number of founders that are going to be present over there. And that was the understanding. You pay us a certain amount, these many people, and the topic of the event and the session and everything was mutually decided. What went wrong was the fact that somewhere in their mind, success was measured by the fact that conversions would happen. And for us, success, what we had very clearly communicated was, but still was misunderstood, was the fact that people will know that this particular thing exists in your organization and they can come to you. And this unfortunately happened across different cities in India for about a year and a half, because they still went on to give us budgets, right? But they would still come back that when some of the people, the stakeholders that were vouching for us and actually understood where some of the lack was happening in the system, left, relationships were of course changed, and then it came back saying, oh, Ishita and her team are actually not capable of it because we didn't meet our target and KRA. We spent, like, we gave them X lakhs or X thousand dollars, but we didn't make a single conversion. But the gap was that after they had access to the people, there was no real follow up of, hey, this is our service. Do you want to meet and talk about it? And the lack of understanding of the fact that we were about, alignment. They didn't have the alignment that if I've got 10 services, which startup should I be offering which of my financial service to? Because you're only selling, you are not thinking for the other person.
Wow, that's quite a gap of understanding, and what a disaster. To think of it, it also impacts one's, work at the end of the day and the whole morale of doing a partnership like this. So, Ishita, I'm sure you've had a bunch of learnings from this particular experience, and of course, in all your other work. What would you say are three skills that one must have if they're really trying to, sort of master the art of partnership and collaborations?
Three skills that one must have.
Yeah.
One is the skill of thinking from all sides. And when I say that, and I know I've said that multiple times in our conversation, think from the your own side, think from the partner side, and think from the stakeholder side, which could be your community members and everybody else. And think about it from a professional, but also with empathy, right? From a human aspect. Because when you're doing partnerships, when you're doing community, AI can enable all of this, but it will take a lot to be replaced. That is something that is very, very important. Thinking about it, having that, I wouldn't call it mindset, but having that ability to not only take, but to make sure that each person in the room walks out feeling like they have won. That is one thing that's very important. The second is maintaining relationships. And this is something that today, has me where I am, because I have changed organizations. I've had great experiences. I've had some really bad ones also, because, well, that's when you're also successful in the industry, because not everybody is very fond of you. But what has helped me is, irrespective, even the instance that I just shared of not a very good collaboration and partnership, I still work with them closely, because they realized that there were certain other people in the organization that realized, okay, this didn't work out because of maybe certain other reasons, but Ishita is out there. We still see the network we have. She has still been supporting us and vouching for us, though there is no monetary aspect to it. So, let's build that, right? Let's build that. Plus, relationships also from the idea that people move organizations, right? But people stay the same. So today, you might not have had a great relationship with XYZ bank or a cloud company or SaaS company. But when that person moves elsewhere, I've had people call me and say, Ishita, I did not have a budget over there. And you were so, like, your perseverance and just the relationship that we built 6 months ago or a year ago has come with me. Today I have these budgets. What are we doing together? Because I want to work with you. What we do, you tell me, I trust you about that, right? So, very strong relationships. And from the relationships, also the idea and awareness of what else is there in the market, right? That is a skill that's there, because I think the awareness of the fact that you are not the only one, be it a brand, be it a community. Yes, there aren't too many also, but you're not the only one. So, very, very clearly knowing what are other brands doing, what are other communities doing, realistically benchmarking yourself against them when you have these conversations. So these are three core things that have really helped me, at least in my journey.
Awesome. I think that's like power packed in not more than 30 minutes. So Ishita, I mean, I'm amazed there's so much to, absorb here. Now I want to take a pause here because I think you and I have been going on and on. I'm going to invite Rebecca, Swati, Neha, Ezra, and Vikhyat. Folks, the floor is yours. Unmute yourself, ask your questions. Feel free to probably brainstorm on something, but let's just also be mindful of everybody else's time. But pick a question, go away, ask about it. Okay, I'm going to start with one. In the chat, or you feel in the chat, everybody put down what is the kind of partnership and collaboration you're currently seeking. Let's see if we can help you walk through it and figure out what's the best way to go about it. Quickly, in the chat, just put down the kind of partnership and collaboration that you're seeking and what's the goal that you wish to achieve out of it. And while you do that, Ishita, any other truth bombs about partnerships and collaborations you'd love to share with all of us?
Truth bombs about it. Interesting. One thing I actually do want to take back, even from the entire thing of relationships, and when you're building that, is make sure that you do certain things for free before you do anything with expectations, right? Let people get to know you, let people know this. The second, which is, I think, not the ugly but not the best part, is going to my third point, which was your benchmarking and reality. Business is business, right? Relationships are great, partnerships are great, friendships are great. But sometimes people, as people, or because they're bound with certain things, are clearly looking at, okay, this is what I want to do. So you will see the same partner, if I may say, working with five different banks for different events in the same month, because, well, that's where budgets are coming from. Or on the other end, you will see the same brand working with five different communities. So no, the loyalty factor comes from one, the quality that you have, second, the relationship, and the stickiness, and the third is the stickiness that you can create. But I would say, like everything else, take even partnerships and collaborations with that extra pinch of salt when you're doing something, right? It is ever amusing, and that's why this journey is so amazing.
Amazing. That's so cool. All right, we have a bunch of messages in the chat. Ishita, do you want to pick a question? So Ezra has posted one. We're looking for different partnerships, including to give our paid members more value in their membership. What's the kind of partnership or collab you would recommend?
Sorry, I'm just gonna read that. We're looking for different partnerships, including giving our pay members more value. Interesting. So, Ezra, excuse me if I've not gone through too much about Mind Valley, though I have a bunch of friends who've said so much about it. But I'll give you an example that has worked very well for me. In a founder community, what really helped was saying that, okay, if there's a paid membership and you are paying me, how can I ensure that you at least get 10x of that back, right? And this happens in two ways. One, it happens in a monetary way. Second is in our perceived value that's there. There could be certain tools that you give them access to, right? Now, if I talk about it from, say, a founder community or a professional community, these could be things like AWS credits, Google Cloud credits. They could be Zoho credits, SaaS tools, a lot of these things. If we talk about just communities of individuals, it could even be access to a therapist or a counselor. It could be access to certain other recreational things. As a my request is, if in a quick 30 seconds, a minute, if you were to give me a little more context on Mind Valley, let's drop something in the next 2 minutes that we feel that you can give value to your members.
Yeah, so thanks for that, Shida. I guess, in moving forward, we're looking for a variety of different partnerships. One that I just included to give our paid members more value with their membership. So this would be like in any of our offline events that we have sponsors or partnerships with products that would our members would directly find interesting, right? That we're an ed tech platform based around personal growth. So our customers and our members are interested in anything that's going to help them grow, um, whether it's in their career or spirituality or in reducing anxiety or therapeutically. So it could be food related stuff. It could be even beauty related stuff that's conscious, like conscious beauty products. Um, so those kind of partnerships, as well as also local partnerships with spaces, say co-working spaces or different types of spaces where they would actually let us use their spaces for free for our members to come together in. And so obviously there's different um, value propositions for these different types of partnerships, and it's got to work for both. But those are a couple of the different types of partnerships we're currently looking at.
Sure. So, as a quick question, do you want me to do like a quick brainstorm on the kind of partnerships, or how do we actually acquire those partnerships?
No, no, I think we kind of like know what we're looking for and what would give value to our um, community. I think it's more of just like, I'm new to partnerships, and some of my other team members are also new to it. And it's just like, I think it's more of like choosing those partnerships correctly, as you were saying earlier, making sure that everyone has the clarity of what's involved and you know, that we don't partner with someone that is expecting us to sell $2,000 worth of their product at the event when nobody purchases anything. But that those kind of expectations are really clear. And I guess what I'm interested in most would be like, what would be the most valuable partnerships um, to forge and kind of look at based on, I guess, my particular need.
Can I make a
Sure.
suggestion here? So, something to start off with, since you mentioned that you and the team both are pretty new to partnerships and collabs, right? It'd be a great way to sort of just put out an Excel sheet, right? And for one, definitely do have some user calls with your existing community members and try and identify what is it that they seek, which is not already being available in your community. So, you're finding the gaps. And while you're having those user calls, also try and understand which kind of products or services or brands do they assign a really high aspirational value versus something which they seem very accessible any which way to them. Because when you do a partnership and collab, and for it to succeed, it's important uh, for them to assign an aspiration, no, for an aspirational value to that. That's one. Two, the other thing
I
you could
like that.
also do is probably create buckets of the sectors or the kind of categories you want to sort of hit, right? And then sort of map it. So, which users would appreciate this sort of product, service, brand more than anybody else? And whichever is the highest delta, then definitely those are the first kind of partnerships you're looking at to start with. Also, some things like creating a framework for your team, the non negotiables, guidelines, having certain toolkits that this is something which we need to always have when we do a collab. uh, content collaborations, community collaborations, sharing network collaborations, advertisement collaborations, or barter, or products, or services, or giveaways, right? Or demo collaborations for workshops. If you kind of, and Ishita, you have to jump in here. I'm just thinking aloud. I
No,
think,
definitely. I like Ritu said, right? Some of these are guidelines that are there, and actually, I love that Ritu and I are, on the call together, because for me, it's also a lot of human. I'm not saying she's not human, but she's also very process oriented, which I'm learning and tending towards. So, one is, of course, looking at that internally. The other thing, Ezra, that you mentioned, right? And we've been talking about that, the right people, the right expectations. How I have built this is also by, if there is a space collaboration, right? You're passing by, go and look at the space, have coffee with the person, have a conversation with the person. Because when you're doing it maybe with a co-working space or a cafe, you're actually not doing it with the co-working space or the cafe. You're ensuring that you are building a strong internal stakeholder over there who then vouches for you. Like, I very closely worked with WeWork Labs in India, right? And I've built that relationship with them, that today, even if I'm not directly working with them and a reference goes through Ishita, it works out well. The same way, if you're doing something with a brand, one is, of course, setting expectations. The second is doing it small, right? If you're saying that, okay, this is something that I would like you to send, I would say always set the lowest expectations and over deliver. For your team, what would be interesting is also telling them, like Ritu said, right? You have conversations with your members, understand what it is. Plus, don't go out and do a 100-member event. Maybe do smaller roundtables in different formats, do your litmus test, do your beta test, understand what they're more receptive to. One last thing that actually I want to mention for everyone on the call is uh, updating your market knowledge of partnerships and collaborations, right? It could be the value that is provided, it could be the budgets that are there, or it could be the mindset of a person or a partner that you have. Because with the world that's changing so fast, suddenly you might have a great space partnership and they say, you know what, Ezra, we have such a good relationship with Mind Valley, let's ensure that every event we're giving it to you at barter, no cost at all. We'll also take care of the food and beverage. 6 months later, revenue team comes in and says, guys, why aren't we getting paid for the space that we're giving, because it's essentially real estate. They pull back and say, okay, you know what, we can't give you food and beverage, we'll still manage to give you the space. 3 months later, things have changed, and now you need to start paying for the space. But if you're in contact with your partners at all times, even if there's not a direct event or a direct need that's happening, you can plan that in advance. So just like you do customer relationship, I always have regular calls with certain partners, even if I feel like I don't know what I'm going to be doing with them. That plus, one last thing that I want to share, I do know we've gone deeper into this, is that everything for personal growth, right? Also, somewhere seeing that if people within the community can provide value to other members, right, through a product, through a service. I'm not saying favor a particular community member, but look at the products and services that are available, because you will always be more receptive to give something for free or discounted or freemium to people who are a part of your own community. Test it over there and then go out. That also enhances the value that someone sees in being a part of your community. I hope that helped. I hope that somewhere helps you and the team.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ashita. That was great advice and great ideas to think about as well, Ritu. Thanks for that.
Thank
thanks, no
you.
worries. All right, we have time for one more question because we're at the 7:50 mark. Vikhyat, Aswati, Neha, of course, Neha. I mean, we can take hour of questions offline, but let's give Aswati and Vikhyat the opportunity to ask a question. Any
Um,
questions?
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. So I've been working in the Web3 and crypto space for almost a couple of years now, and the journey started with me being mostly in the Web2 space. I was working with a health tech startup based in Bangalore, and after that, the partnerships that we usually do in the Web3 space, I have very little experience with that. And the major challenge and blocker I would say I'm facing currently is uh, we reach out to these communities, and most of them, when we send them the proposals, most of them take a lot of time. Either they take a lot of time to get back to us, or they don't usually get back to us. So is the solution reaching out to as many communities as you can, or is the solution like drafting out a personalized proposal just for them, doing research on them, and like preferring quality over quantity, basically?
Quick question. What are you looking at, from these communities? What is your ask?
So currently, I'm working with an educational platform, and what we have to give is our courses that we can provide exclusive access to these communities, and in return, we're looking to basically, the main priority is to build brand awareness, and along with that, we're also getting to get user signups on the platform.
Interesting. Interesting. So, Vikyat, where I see this, right, is two things. You go broad and you go deep.
Hmm.
One is, of course, you need to do a A/B testing when you're doing something like that, right? When I say broad and deep, the first thing is going and looking at which are the communities that will derive value out of this and do not have access to it, right? It's not that they will derive value and have access, because then you're just another one. The second is, not getting a response always does not mean disagreement. It just means people are busy sometimes, right? So I have this thing that I reach out to them on multiple platforms. I do a quick follow up till I understand. Plus, building that relationship with other communities, other community builders, being at a event that might, where you can bump into some of these people and have conversations help. Because then in conversation, you've said, hey, I'm Vikya, this is something that I'm doing, and I'd love to provide some of this value. On the other side, you'd also get to hear from them that do they want knowledge in the form of a course, or can you actually acquire customers through doing a Twitter space or through doing a thread or any of these things? So listening to communities because they have access and insight. The other part is, of course, reaching out to as many also and having conversations, right? You're not necessarily saying this is what I want from you. Maybe just go in and have no agenda conversation saying, hey, this is a space that I am in. I would really appreciate your time if you could just share more about, how you all are thinking of this. And the third way, again, what you mentioned and reiterating is customizing these things, right? Going into the community, seeing which platform they're the most active on, what are they talking about, which community manager is also more active, right? Sometimes one community manager is more active than the other because one takes care of the back end and ops, one is actually out there and, you know, going out there and posting. So understanding that and going on one or two key things, saying that, hey, you did XYZ event that's there, and I'd love to, see how we can collaborate for it and build relationships in the web3 space with such a dynamic thing. Everyone is also being wary of it, that okay, where is it going, what should I do? So your allies are the friends that you build through this, because best case is that partnerships happen. Even better case is that you've also built friends in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
I hope that's helped.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely gave me some points to work on and get back on the boat. And
Yeah, and
these
Vikyat,
things
feel
are
free
practical.
to. I'm not the most active on Twitter while I've attempted 100 times, but LinkedIn works well. Feel free to drop me a message. There are a bunch of Web3 communities that I myself am in touch with. So if there's any way I can make that connect, happy to do that.
Definitely would do that after the session.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Awesome. On that note, thank you so much, Ishita. But before you leave, we have a CMX India chapter tradition there, and this is something which obviously comes in as a little surprise. Yes, there's going to be a bit of a rapid fire. You have to not think and quickly answer these questions. Okay. All right. All right. Two partnerships and collaborations you wish you could do today.
Decathlon. I love Decathlon. And a travel brand.
I'm not
A
surprised.
travel brand that would, let me see. Maybe I will say Indigo right now because I'm in India and I know they have the most number of flights that go out. But yeah,
Okay.
a travel brand.
One partnership or collaboration which is on your bucket list you want to forge for a certain segment of a target audience. You could talk about gender, you could talk about anything, any particular targeted audience segment that you really want to do something with. Gen Z's, millennials, boomers, whatever, the works, professionals, students, roadside vendors, whatever. What's that one thing that you really want to do? Come on.
Okay, very interesting, and I might get killed for this, but better job quality. I would like to just like do a partnership with, again, one of these travel brands or something like that that could let people who are working take a break month and say, you know what, don't come to office, go out there, explore the world, and come back, and have like a credit system or something like that around it. I know multiple Jupiter, a lot of these people are doing it where you can save for your holidays, but yeah, something around just
Okay.
moving away from office for a while.
One crazy partnership collaboration, think out of the box, you would recommend for a tier 3 city, town. For all the young Gen Zs in tier 3 towns, regional languages.
Partnership collaboration for Gen Z. Difficult, difficult. I feel like you've got me on the fire, not the rapid. Gen Z tier three. A collaboration with Gen Z tier one.
I love that one. Very, very, very interesting and so impactful. And I think that is something which we should explore.
Yes.
We should.
Ritu, one thing I do want to share, right? If it's okay, because when you were talking about brands, this just came up as something that I'm very, very proud of. And the fact that have these brands, have these aspirational ones, right? Ezra, Vikhyat, you all have spoken about partnerships and things like that. Some of these might seem like moonshots, but they happen. My first day at my first job, I was building the regional office for a brand based out of Mumbai and building it in Bangalore. Flipkart was fairly new. And my benchmark for success was that someday I want to get Flipkart as a client. 6 months later, we had got them on board. Only with the fact that in my mind, I knew I had to do that. I worked towards it. I followed up. I was aware of what's happening. Of course, it wasn't a partnership, it was a paid partnership, it was business. But till today, every time I look at Flipkart, I'm so proud of the fact because maybe if that didn't work out, the entire domino effect wouldn't have happened, and maybe I'd have not been doing partnerships.
Awesome, awesome. On that note, thank you so much, Ishita, for joining us today, sharing all these truth bombs and frameworks and snippets on how does one really go about planning partnerships and collaborations. Really, really appreciate you making your time out. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ritu. Thanks, Neha, for putting this together.